Alright, we'll start with the shell. This is the standard 2.2 gallon blank Sportster style shell. What I like to do when I work with these shells is to work up from the inside of the tank and take this flat spot out right here, so that when we do run a Frisco mount, we have a nice even transition right here when we run the fuel filler up at the top of the tank further forwards. You don't have to. It doesn't look too bad, but I'm pretty picky about the shells that I work with to start with, so I generally do a decent amount of work from the inside out and get that nice and domed. Some of the tools that you can use for beating this area out, or at least starting to block this area roughly, is you can use like a Delrin or a high molecular weight plastic hammer. Get on the inside of this. Sometimes the front of this tank is going to get in the way, so what I've done is I use this thing called a slide sledge. It's actually just a slide hammer used in auto body to try to take dents out or try to, you know, bang some shape into sheet metal. And then I'll get a close-up of the end piece I've used that has kind of a low dome on it that will help block this out without putting huge dents in it.
Alright, this is the slide sledge, and you have a piece that slides right on here and it's held by this little piece of spring steel. The pieces that generally come in the kit, all different types of shapes to be able to move metal around, you know, like a dinging tip, some round tips, which I've used this in the past. Puts a little bit more of a dent in the metal, but it's good for roughing. And then other pieces you can use for trim. The piece I've made is just out of a piece of 1-inch 120 wall DOM stock with just kind of a low dome piece welded on the end of it, and this is what we'll use to work on the inside of the tank. You can get a little bit more close up of the flat area of the transition right in here where it flattens out in the tank. You can see it a little bit. What we're going to do is work from the inside of the tank in this area to dome it out. Right, after about 10 minutes of work here, we got this domed out pretty well. You look at the side profile, you can see how it follows a nicer transition, a nice line up there rather than that flat spot. Here's a picture of the interior where we did the work. The surface is a little bit bumpy, so you could use some kind of anvil underneath, some form, and do hand planishing work with some body hammers. Or what we're going to do is we're going to step over a planishing hammer and run it through a couple of courses and smooth this out. Here's the simple planishing hammer that I use. Really is only good for planishing, not really moving metal too seriously, especially when you're using something like 16 gauge or so, 16 gauge steel. It is modified here to have a deeper yoke to be able to move the shell around much easier, because the edges of the shell and the front and back of it get in the way with the original design from the machine that was angled up to this point right here. After the first course of running the tank through the planishing hammer, we're starting to pull the high spots down, as you can see through these shiny, or they actually look like dark spots, but they are shiny. Bringing everything down into a more uniform surface to dome it out nice. Here's the shell after the second course. On the planishing hammer you can see it's starting to smooth it out more. You can look at the side, how we're getting a good dome across that whole area. Alright, here's the shell after the third course. You can see all these marks are getting closer together, so everything is really being brought into one surface. It's really starting to look smooth. And we'll compare this to a stock shell after we're done with it, so you can really see the difference. Here are the two shells. The stock shell is on the right, the dome shell is on the left. You can see the dome shell, the crown that we put into it, and you see on the stock shell we'll get that big flat spot right there. It's pretty evident how flat it is from this look compared to the dome shell.